Okay, hello everyone. It's the second talk of today. My name is Julia and I'm from the Green Office. We have our wonderful next guest speaker, Ross Bernson. And she is from Metabolic, which was founded in 2012 and is currently based in Amsterdam. And their mission is to transition the global economy to a sustainable state using a combination of systems thinking and data science. So they work across three main arms, which is consulting, Metabolic Institute, and ventures. And now I'm gonna hand it over to Rose, and she's gonna tell you all about. Then we'll have some time for questions. We can do it as we did with the previous one, so you can just post questions during the talk, and then we will ask Rose to answer the questions at the very end of the presentation. So yeah, thank you very much, Rose, again for doing this.
Unmute.
Yeah.
Hello. Hello, guys. Yeah, thank you, Julia, for that introduction. And thank you all for joining this quick presentation, brief presentation. It's always funny seeing all these pixeled faces in these times, but I think it's a great way to at least get some information and get to know a couple of companies and organizations. So yeah, as Julia mentioned, my name is Rose Bernson. I'm the operations and HR manager at Metabolic. Which is, in short, a sustainability consulting firm. But as already, yes, Julia already mentioned, we have quite some entities under our Metabolic umbrella, so to speak. So in this presentation, I'll just quickly tell you a bit more about that, dive into our method also, really our sort of core elements to our work, have a couple of projects I tell you about, and then we have quite some open positions right now too. So since this is a green career event, I thought you would be interested in hearing more about that as well. So yeah, here we, I think let's just start. So yeah, as was mentioned by Julia before, we have our mission to transition the global economy to a fundamentally sustainable state. And in order to do that, we have three different entities right now that are the most important to us. So one of them is a consulting arm. We basically develop specific strategies for partners and different parties, organizations, businesses, yeah, to become a more sustainable company, basically, or organization. Then the think tank is basically our knowledge generator. It's also called the Metabolic Institute, and it basically really pushes the innovation that is needed to develop all these strategies for consulting work. And then thirdly, we have ventures. They really focus on social enterprises and really help them to accelerate and catalyze them really to make the greater impact that you can as a company. So consulting, firstly, yeah, it's really focused on clear, impactful strategies that we develop with our partners, and then we definitely help to sort of implement them as well in their current strategies and operations, which is often quite a hard part to actually motivate people to help you implement that strategy too. So yeah, so the strategies we have developed, they demonstrate potential for the things mentioned here. So 50% reduction in carbon emissions, and that was really from a manufacturing process perspective. Then a 70% reduction in energy consumption. You see reduction in waste, new jobs that kind of come out of the process that we do with clients, and it's often on the city level. And then you definitely see your revenue gain of a lot of money, $80 million citywide for one specific city we worked with. And then below you see a couple of our clients. So as you can see, it's quite a range of different organizations and institutes we work with. So you see City of Amsterdam, City of Rotterdam, that's really a local governmental level we work with. But also bigger organization and bigger organizations, NGOs like WWF, but also businesses. Duracell is one, Alpro, Danone. We just kicked off a really great project, really challenging one also with PepsiCo, which you might know, but also banks on circular finance like ABN AMRO, or insurance companies. De Nationale Nederlander is one. You might have heard of that one. So a lot of different projects. And then the think tank, so the knowledge generator, really combines this research, academic research, with just experiments in the actual world, basically. We find that academic research can be quite the white tower, like the tower you live in, and then you do your research. It's not really connected to the actual world you live in, and the institute really tries to be find the middle ground there, basically, and combine the two. So here you can find a couple of our projects. One is a Circular Cities program that's both in the US but also in Poland. And that really is based on the idea that cities make up 3% of the whole land surface, basically, of the earth, but they consume 75% of all the resources that are currently available globally. And that really leads to 60–80% of the global gas emission, basically, greenhouse gas emissions. Then the Reflow project is an EU project. It's a longer term project, it's 4 years. And it really tries to develop this open source software to track resource flows, basically, on a city level. And then Materium is also a project that we do. It's more of an open source platform, and that really works with sustainably sourced biomass products, basically. So as you can see, there's a lot of open source mentioned in these projects too. For the Institute, that's one of the most important pillars. And of course, you can have a whole discussion on what's actually open source and how to best use it, basically. That's really something that's on our mind all the time, so while doing these projects. And then thirdly, there's ventures. Here you see a couple of examples of the ventures that were already kicked off before it was actually a formalized entity. So Spectra is one of them, really focusing on 100% renewable energy. Metabolic Foundation is our foundation in Aruba. It's a couple of interns that work with us, and then they decided to move on and make their own sort of foundation as part of Metabolic. And they are really community driven, really focused on education and empowering people. Since Aruba is an island, there's a lot of waste management strategies to work on, and it's a really great way to develop a strategy together with the people that actually live on that island, so inhabitants. And then Systemic is our software arm. They're working on software development and software tools. So ChemDSS is one of them. It's an eco-design tool, and it was really developed to help chemical producers to make more sustainable chemical products, basically. So it can be from shampoo to a lotion to anything you can think of in the realm of these types of products. So that's a really exciting one. We finished it not too long ago, and now, of course, it's still in progress. You can always change things about that. So yeah, here's the why of our company. This was a bit what we do. So yeah, the company was founded by Eva Gladek, who's our CEO, and in 2012. And she has a background in industrial ecology, but also has a lot of experience in labs, and that's where she really found the exponential growth curve, often in like bacteria growth or something. She found it really interesting to see this incredible growth that's going on. And she really learned that, of course, it's not only bacteria that grow exponentially. There's a lot of things related to climate change, actually, these days, that where you can really see that exponential growth curve as well. So it can be population. You can see here ocean ecosystems, fertilizer consumption, biodiversity, you name it. You often see an exponential growth curve. Even now, in times of the COVID-19, you also see this exponential growth curve, and it's something that's really important to note in any sort of global challenge we face right now. That we really need to find a solution that fits this exponential growth curve, basically, of all these elements. And that's really, in order to do that, of course, and that's really because you want to stay within that planetary boundary that we have. So there's here you see a visual that really shows there are 9 sort of main categories that we use, at least when we talk about planetary boundaries. And you see there's different layers. So the green one, we're still within the planetary boundaries. But then the second one, the orange one, shows there's an increasing risk. We're already far out, and there's, we cannot really stay within those boundaries. And then the red one is really high risk. And you see, for example, biogeochemical flows is one, so nitrogen, we've heard a lot recently. And then there's biosphere integrity. These are, of course, you can talk for hours about this specific thing, so I'll just keep it short. And then our way of working. So yeah, as mentioned, we really see there's all these exponential growth curves going on. There's a lot of global sustainability challenges we need to face. And this sort of shows also how we work ourselves in order to, develop a solution to those challenges, basically. So here you see material flow analysis, which basically shows you that on the left side, it shows you the input in the system, and the system can be anything. It can be your office. In this case, it's the world. So you see what each continent sort of puts in. You see, so yeah, these icons are quite small, but you see the legend here. So you have the biomass, fossil fuels, that goes into the world, basically. That's all used, and then sort of stuff that comes out is all what comes here. So you see wastewater, you see long-term stock, you see construction waste, chemical waste, kind of shows you how these flows sort of work at this moment. And of course, this is one from 10 years ago now. But this is what we do a lot for our clients. I'll just skip this because it can be a bit, you can talk for hours about that too. So systems thinking for us is sort of the core element to the solutions that we develop. And there's 4 points that for us are really important to define systems thinking. So one is that all problems stem from a smaller number of root causes. So rather than having a one-time event that you analyze, you really look into the deeper causes, and even the mental models sometimes, like how does it happen? Is this one event thing? Where does it come from? How does it evolve? How does it develop? And secondly, there's exponential challenges can be addressed by exponential solutions. As I mentioned earlier, these challenges ask for a specific solution that matches the level on which these challenges sort of happen. And then using systems theory, we can find leverage points for lasting change. So we believe that if you have that system and you have that exponential solution, the solutions that are best or most effective are the ones that have the highest impact and the least effort, or like are easiest to do, basically. And then fourth, the circular economy is a framework that allows us to find true pathways to eco-economic decoupling. There was a slide you just saw, economic decoupling, that basically means that instead of having this production increase matched with a raise, basically, in the pressure on the environment, which you see now, this something we produce immediately has an impact, negative impact on the environment. We kind of want to decouple that and make sure that the economy can work on its own without using too much resources. And in that case, really, decrease basically the pressure on the environment. And circular economy is more of a tool than the actual sort of core element of our work. So again, here's what system thinking actually is. As I mentioned, instead of looking at this one top of the iceberg event, you really just dive deeper into that pyramid or into that iceberg, and kind of want to identify those patterns and structures, and really dive into the mental models also, and kind of see the system as a whole and see where it actually starts, instead of only having these one-time events. And so systems thinking, which is the core to our work, is really about understanding these dynamics and these structures and these systems, basically, and how they interact with each other. And again, here is a supply chain is mentioned as an example. So instead of having the end product, really look at the whole production system and see where you can change these things and where you can interact, basically, and intervene. And yeah, Metabolic really believes that provides new insights into the actual structural impacts of the project or the system or anything you can imagine, basically. And it can help identify these interventions. As mentioned earlier, if you only have this one end product, like it can be a fork, for example, just to mention something easy, you kind of want to see the whole production system and see, okay, this one thing can cause a lot of waste, but where does it start, and what is the part of the system where we can make the most impact, basically? Is it the resource? Is it the specific sort of method you use to actually develop that fork, and all those things? And then finally, there's the avoiding the problem shifting and other unintended things if you understand the system. So you can really make sure to focus on the most important things, and make sure that you understand also the consequences that you might haven't noticed if you don't look at the whole system, but only at a one-time event. I'm just gonna show you a little bit about a project. So this is really what we often do. We have a client, they ask us to do a current state analysis of their resource use, for example, or their production system or their operations. Then we set goals, which of course need to be realistic. You need to be able to actually measure it and track your process. Then eventually you want to intervene if that's needed. So here's an example for current state analysis. This is a hospital, the Radboud Hospital. You kind of see, okay, what goes into this hospital? It's water, it's energy, it's resources, it's labor, it's patients and clients. How many is it, like how much is that? You see here textile, clothing, etc. what goes in, and then you see all the waste that's being produced by this one hospital. And you can probably imagine that if you have this current state analysis, it's way easier to set realistic goals. We've all heard the goals for 2050, for example, or 2030 even. It can be really abstract, and if you have a current state of your organization or institution, then you can more easily set realistic goals to achieve these longer term goals, basically. So this is visioning and goal setting. These are the goals that we use. I'll just skip this for now. Intervention analysis. As I mentioned, once you have that current state analysis and you have those goals, you can sort of see what is the most feasible intervention with the highest impact. Those are the ones that you want, because of course, there's a lot you can do in a specific system or in a hospital like this, in this example, to make it more sustainable, but it has to be feasible as well. And we all know that it can be quite challenging to even change a small thing. So if you were to change something, you really wanted to make a bigger impact. So yeah, in short, we have the current state analysis, we have the goal setting, interventions, and then there's the implementation phase. And focused on that, I just want to guide you through a couple of projects that we do. So these are the categories, basically, or the sort of the fields in which we work. So cities and regions, the built environment, chemicals, plastics, manufacturing, food, and finance. So cities and regions. As mentioned earlier in this presentation, cities make up only 3% of the land use, but they consume 75% of all the global resources available. So for us, the cities are a great leverage point. So if you are able to transform cities and make them a more sustainable city, basically, you can make a huge impact already. So what we do is helping cities, regions to find practical ways to become more inclusive and resilient and circular. So you see that we don't mention the sustainability too much, because it's a concept that people can associate with so many different things. It has so many meanings that for us, this inclusivity, resilience, and circularity is really important. And then we look at how to scale up this circular change from local innovation hubs, basically, to neighborhoods, to the citywide and also regional. So start small, but also look at all the other levels in which it can happen. And then bring cities together around high impact to drive focused action and stimulate shared learning. So here's two of our case studies. The Keuvel, you might know, it's quite popular in the green spheres in Amsterdam. That for us was one of the first projects we did, and was really seen as sort of a technical playground for us to just experiment with different systems and mechanisms, basically. And the urban mining, Dutch cities and regions. as you can see here, was really to kind of make an assessment of the resources that are available and how to develop models that can really map that construction and demolition waste and kind of see where does it go. Can we make sure to actually reuse the materials that are left over at the specific construction project, and how to match those resources with solutions basically, and new sort of ways where to apply it or use it. And then cities, specific cities we worked with. So the US city Charlotte was our first one in the US. And what we found really interesting, that we have worked with quite some Dutch cities too, like Rotterdam is one, for example. They were really focused on job development and sort of, that was their focus. But what we realized in Dutch cities, you often see they're really motivated to have that strategy and to be ready and have that sort of ticked off from the checklist, basically. But then it's quite hard to actually implement it. Charlotte actually was a totally different case. It was basically quite hard actually developing the strategy, but then implementation went way faster. They were really motivated to really keep on going, basically. They had the idea that, of course, strategy, you can have that, but what's the use of a strategy if you cannot apply it straight away and really get the gains from that specific project, basically. And then Poland and Eindhoven. So as I mentioned, Circular Cities Program Poland is really working with 5 cities in Poland and organize meetings to have them together in one room and see what is it that we can change on a more national level, basically, in the cities. Built environment, let's see, Schoon Schip is a nice one. They say it's the most sustainable floating community in Europe. It all, of course, sounds really amazing, but the great thing about this project, I find personally, is that it really works with this smart grid system, which basically means that you generate your own energy and then distribute it according to the needs of the people living in that community. And that's, for me, a really groundbreaking idea on like a floating community. Framework for circular buildings. Yeah, there's so much I can talk about. I can talk for hours and hours about all the projects that we do. So plastics, chemicals, as I mentioned earlier, there's the ChemDSS thing. We worked with the tool to really allow producers of chemical products basically to be greener and more sustainable. So that's really has to do with identifying these low impact feedstocks, emerging technologies, redesign products to be more circular, basically, circular waste management, resource optimization, and production facilities. So here's a couple of them: bio-based chemical feedstocks. So really see, okay, we assess more than 20 of these types of biomass within a chemical producer, and kind of see how environmentally friendly they are, or how good they are, how good they score in a socioeconomic level, and really identify the lowest impact feedstocks for production. So here really make sort of a hierarchy almost in chemicals and the types of biomass to kind of see what is the most, what's the best one for the environment with an eye on the impact it has. Industrial symbiosis, so shifting chemical feedstock sources from more like fossil fuels to more, to greener resources, basically. ChemDSS is the one I mentioned in the beginning. It's a decision support tool, and this one I personally also find really interesting because it helps chemical producers to not only save money and reduce risks, but really also just make it easier, basically, and see, okay, we now have ethanol. This is one thing. What is the human toxicity? What is the ecological one? Environmental footprint? And how can we compare this? So are there any other ingredients that we could sort of exchange this one for to make it a greener, less toxic product for both human beings and the environment? I also see there's a chat going on. I don't know if I already need to answer or leave this for the Q&A.
So we have 10 more minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I can read out the questions and you can answer them. So
Okay,
yeah.
great. John just finished this part because I'm also really curious to hear your questions. Then I'll just close this Zoom chat. Okay, so and then plasticity is also a project that we worked on. Manufacturing, circular electronics is one. So Duracell is a client, Apple, Cisco, and that's all. And all has to do with the packaging, but also just using the company waste itself and kind of see if you can recycle that or reuse. Of course, reuse is better than recycle. And then indicators for recycling materials, different scales, tracking, monitoring, zero waste factories. And here's also an interesting one. Of course, everyone talks about renewable energy technologies and how important that is to move and transition towards an economy based on green energy. But we did a research to kind of see if there's actually enough materials to develop all these windmills, for example, that would then generate energy, green energy. And analysis actually revealed that the current global supply of these several critical metals that are needed for the production of windmills are insufficient to transition. So there's actually not enough materials to actually do that. And to ensure the sufficient supply, circular economy strategies are needed now to actually reduce that critical metal dependence and increase that material recovery also. So we need to find new resources in order to produce all the metal products basically we want to produce. Food and agriculture. This is also what we focus on, helping companies develop science-based targets. The planetary boundaries I mentioned earlier in this presentation are really important, but it's of course quite hard matching sort of science-based targets to that specific concept. To make it more concrete and more applicable basically to your operations or production system. And we also really work on the solutions for a future-proof food system. So circular agriculture strategies, food waste management. I just saw Taste Before You Waste had their presentation too, which is of course really interesting with an eye on food waste and how to manage that basically. Sustainable sourcing, resource efficient production techniques. So there's a lot of material there to work on, and again we could go on for hours and discuss all these specific topics that are really interesting in themselves, but for now I wanted to focus on a couple of the key projects basically. So one of the most recent one is LPRO WWF, and we really developed these science-based targets together with these two organizations. So Alpro, they had one case that they wanted to investigate, which is the almond farms and soy farms. And we had a couple of those that we kind of focused on, and together with WWF, we kind of wanted to develop a strategy to do a current state analysis basically of what they use at the moment. And to really conduct this pilot basically to assess the planetary boundaries for all the resources that were used. Then circular food systems. That's also a project we did with Copper 8 and Metabolic. Hak, which is a really Dutch company. They were really interested in more sustainable packaging for their products. And then finance is actually the one we're just picking up now, or at least it's something we never really had to focus for or on. We just didn't have the time basically to dive into that, but now we do. So circular finance really see financial mechanisms as sort of a way to achieve the goals and develop solutions for these global sustainability challenges that we face. So this is a couple of financial institutions. So Rabobank, ABN AMRO, Nationale-Nederlanden is also an insurance company. And the last one, PGTM. Those are also organizations we work with. Then to quickly end, these are all the vacancies we have open right now. As you can see, there's also quite some from Spectral, which is the 100% renewable energy company. they are still sort of part of the metabolic ecosystem. So we put them here too. Then we have internships twice a year, so in the spring and in the fall. And we have a couple of full-time positions too. So industries consultant, cities consultant, Dutch. It's really hard finding Dutch people, actually. We are a really international company, but it's of course really important to actually speak the language in which of the country you operate in. So we're always looking for Dutchies too, and Dutch-speaking people. And then there's a junior media industries consultant. So you can find more information on these vacancies on our website, metabolic.nl. And you can always reach out to work at metabolic.nl or HR at Metabolic if you want any more answers to specific questions on our jobs and positions. So that was my presentation. I hope it was helpful, and I'm really looking forward to any questions that have arisen.
Okay, thank you so much. That was really insightful. We have so many questions in the chat, so I'll start reading them out loud. For everyone who won't be able to get the answer to their question, I posted an email address. It's greencareerday@gmail.com. You can send anything there and we will make sure that you will get the answer to your questions. Okay, so starting, we have, hi Rose, could you give an insight about the hiring process? For example, how long does it take for you to review an application and which steps are taken between application and hiring?
Okay, yeah, that's an interesting question. So let's see, I think it depends on what kind of position it is. For example, internships, we have a lot of applications, but we really try to put it online like a month and a half or 2 months before. And that's often, or at least before the deadline. And for example, the September ones we already put on just now. The deadline is end of June. And for us, it's really important to actually give good feedback also and really make sure to take time to evaluate these applicants and have as many chats as we can, because it's just really important meeting people before. And if there's no place now, there's always a great chance that later in the year or a year later, actually, we reach out again if we have something open. So I don't know if that answers your question. Anna, I think is your name.
Okay, moving on. Hi Rose, have you seen a change in governmental willingness to work on a circular economy, especially now during this health crisis that's showing economic drawbacks?
So we definitely see a trend on all levels actually in the willingness of people to work with us or to learn from us also. Most of our clients are bigger institutions, and of course like the smaller governmental organs like the municipalities or something, you really see that now, especially in these corona times now, they have different priorities. But overall, we also see that people now realize the effect of an exponential growth curve, basically, and really notice that we cannot control everything that we hope we have control over. So a lot of our clients that were not too willing to work with us now sort of immediately reached out and said, we really want to set up a project with you guys now. So that's on a lot of levels actually that it happens. Also governments, basically.
Okay, we have also questions about, are you primarily looking for people with a university education, or are you also looking at experiences? So like, what master's and undergraduate background do most people working at Metabolic have?
So the majority of our employees have a background in industrial ecology or environmental science or more technical side of sustainability, basically. So a lot of them come from the TU Delft, for example, or mostly TU Delft actually. But now we're growing and we're focusing on different parts of sustainability and also do the ventures, for example, or more the institute one. We are definitely open to chat with anyone who thinks that they're interested. Of course, it's easier if they have a specific master in that area, because then you right away know this is a person that has the knowledge that is needed. Because it can be, it's quite high quality, a lot of research, high quality work that is expected from our clients, or at least that's really what our clients expect. But yeah, me, for example, I did university college and I have a background in film sciences. So I ended up there too. So definitely, if you're motivated and you're passionate about sustainability and really believes you can contribute something, that's definitely an option too. Always reach out, I'd say.
Okay, we also have a question about whether ABN indirectly invests in fossil fuels, and a question that is connected to that, whether Metabolic manages to push a green agenda in companies that clearly do not have sustainability as their #1 priority, such as Pepsi Coke.
That's a really important question, and we have a lot of discussions about these things. For example, some time ago we got a proposal or like a request from a company in Saudi Arabia that was basically an oil company, or like Shell, for example, is also a company that they've reached out to us. Shell actually recently they wanted circular tank, like pump stations, gas stations. We were like, okay, we're not sure if that's what we want to work on, because you just need to transition your entire business to a more sustainable state, not only that one specific circular location. So, but it's a tough one, because on the one hand, ABN AMRO has a sort of commission that is really, really motivated and passionate about actually transitioning this. Not everyone in that company is bad, basically, and like it's similar to Shell. So it's always kind of see what they do and how they do it. But if we're a client with them, we are definitely being honest with them and say, this is what you do. If you really want to change, these are all the things you need to change. So it's a tough question, and it's something you always need to, you need to discuss that with the team and make that part of your work, basically, to kind of see where the boundary actually lies and if that's still responsible or not. Really great question, thank you.
So unfortunately, we're running out of time, and why don't we wrap up with one last question? So I just wanted to conclude with asking you, what is your favorite part about working in Metabolic?
The people. We are a really great sort of group of friends almost, and well, we have a lot of fun together, going on climbing trips and whatnot. We also do really amazing professional projects. So a really human-focused company, and I'm really happy to see that that's actually possible, while also sustaining yourself and having a really great impact. So definitely the people, yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much again. The next talk is gonna be from Urhenda, and our next wonderful speaker from the Green Office will continue from me. As I said, once again, about the questions, you can send all of them to the email address, and we will work on taking the presentations and getting them and making them available on the website or anywhere. We will certainly talk about that. So thank you very much, Ross, again. That was great. That was very insightful. I will definitely look into Metabolic myself as well. And enjoy the rest of our career days.
Yeah, you too. Yeah, guys, enjoy. It's always funny seeing all these mutant little squares. I hope it was helpful, and feel free to reach out. You can always send us an email at info@metabolic or rose@metabolic is my personal email address. So yeah, feel free to reach out if you have any more questions. All right, enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks a lot.
All right, bye-bye.